Hi, my name is Ed Kelly, and I'm a resident of Brunswick Hills Township, about 12 years now, and also a former resident of Brunswick, the city of. We're here today to talk about stormwater problems and stormwater solutions. The program is called Stormwater and You, and it is a first in a public service programs designed to help you folks that have flooding problems. We will start out today talking about issues that relate to quality and quantity, but we want this to be an interactive program. And interactive in that while you watch, note some of the things that may be occurring at your home. And so let's continue and move right into the show, but at the end, please be aware that we would like some interaction. That means send us your comments and questions. Thank you. All right, some of the residents of the city of and Brunswick Hills in this viewing area experience basement flooding, and also some surface water flooding during rainfall events. The purpose of airing this public service program is really to explain what conditions contribute to these types of flooding. And these shows will again invite public input. We'll show this at the end of the slideshow, the email address as well as the Brunswick Area Television Studio address to send questions and comments so that we continue in the next series and answer some of those questions you may send in. Once again, the issues today that we'll discuss are quantity issues. We'll also talk in future shows about quality issues, that is, quality of the stormwater as it falls onto the ground. But first, the focus again today will be on basement flooding, things that occur at your home, and things that we think that will help you if you do have these type of problems. The picture on the right shows surface water flooding, but we want you to know that if you have surface water flooding problems, they may or may not contribute to what today's focus is, basement flooding. Why are we really worried about flooding? And that question comes up all the time, especially with what we call drought conditions or drought-like conditions. It's been so dry, even to the extent that this May of 2007, it was the second driest month ever recorded. So we still want to continue and find out just what it is that drought-like conditions and how they occur and why they affect our homes. Okay, the pictures that you see on the screen are depicting what happens when we have a drought-like or very, very dry period, and a drought-like condition is described as long-term dry periods, sometimes in the 90-degree plus area of temperature. And what happens during that time, the ground dries out because there's no moisture, very little rain effects. And when it does, the ground, because the moisture goes out of the ground, tends to shrink. And when it does at your home, right near the foundation of your house, where the soil meets your house, that ground shrinks, and when you have piping that goes into the ground, that piping can be dislodged. And of course you can't see that below ground, but we know that when there is a gap around the house, and if we look over here, we see a dark area along the foundation of the house. That's actually a gap of airspace because the ground is literally pulled away from the house. That leaves a gap of air that when rain events, after a while when rain occurs, it can spill down the sheet of the house and spill right into that crack, causing potentially basement flooding or contributing to that type of problem. And back on the left-hand side, this is the storm piping that collects the storm water and takes it away from your house and takes it out to the street or to a storm sewer. However, as I mentioned, when that ground starts to move, these pipes can be skewed slightly, and eventually this is where the leak occurs. We also have problems where that water exfiltrates or leaves the piping and flows down to the sanitary sewer through the foundation drain. And this is the sanitary sewer that's maintained by the Medina County sanitary engineers in this area. So this is one of the reasons we're concerned about the dry conditions and relating to basement flooding. When we have these over long term, and we have had for the last few years dry conditions during the summer, extremely dry in that ground shrinks again, we feel that possibly even next year when we get significant rain events, we may have more flooding problems because of this. Now let's move forward and look again at what your house looked like when it was built. This is basically a hole in the ground. Your house is started with a big hole. They eventually pour the foundation, and the first piping that goes into the house at the very bottom underneath the floor slab is called the foundation drain. And these pipes are generally on the exterior of the house. In this left photo you see both inside and outside. And the reason for these pipes are to collect moisture that is underneath your floor slab and transport it away. These holes, there are holes in these pipes. They're perforated pipes so that it allows water to come in. So in this way it doesn't come up under your floor and cause cracks. The photo on the right-hand side shows a little different type of foundation drain. It's a single pipe, but as you can see, this is the outside wall of the house and this is inside of your house. I'm using the cursor to show this. This pipe down below, this black pipe, is the foundation drain for this particular excavated area. It's meant to drain water away, very similar to what the photo on the left shows. Two different applications. Now the important thing to know as a homeowner is that in an older home, such as those in the older part of Brunswick and also in Brunswick Hills, the older homes, the foundation piping connects to the sanitary sewer. And when any stormwater gets to that foundation drain, as leaks that we've shown, that can contribute to any flooding of the area because the sanitary sewer is not meant to treat or convey stormwater. So again, the older portions of the city and also of the township are affected more so than the newer built areas. However, let's go right to the newer areas and talk about what your house looks like, and those that have newer homes have sump pumps built in. So you folks that have a sump pump in your basement of your house, we're going to show what happens when it rains at your house and why your sump pump comes on and sometimes why it doesn't. So if we watch real closely at the roof area here, we're going to turn on the rain, and then I want you to watch these downspout pipes, these pipes that are vertical and that eventually go horizontal, and they're meant to drain rainwater into the storm sewer. And over here at the bottom we find the foundation drain again in the illustration as it moves below the basement slab and connects into your sump pit. Now, if you were to look into your sump pit, you'll see a pipe coming into the side of it. That is your foundation drain. So let's go back and turn the water on and watch what occurs in a newer house as this water flows down through the downspout, and this is rainwater coming off your roof area. As you can see, flows into the storm sewer and eventually flows to Rocky River from this area and then eventually Lake Erie. And this is a good example of a house that has no problems when it rains. But as systems get older and houses deteriorate, piping underneath, the ground moves, we have problems that occur, for instance, like the photo on the left side that shows roots that are grown inside this old pipe. And why do those roots get into that pipe? That pipe that's over here on the right-hand side has moisture in it, and the roots from this tree or shrubs that you may plant around your house migrate down into the ground and look for a source of water. When they do, they can get into these openings between the pipes, and this is the result, which is this root system has filled up this pipe and made it inoperative, and therefore leaks start to occur. So we have more problems, of course, in houses that are older than obviously brand new homes. So let's now go to the let's go to the older house with that same sump pump. And for the residents that notice that when it rains, their sump pump comes on immediately. That's an indicator that there's a problem, and we're going to show you just what that looks like. So let's go back and look at the same house as it ages and turn the water on at the roof and follow it back down again, as we did with the newer home. So as we see the water continue to flow, it all of a sudden is interrupted by a blockage. And what then happens, water is forced out, it migrates down to the foundation drain, into the sump pump, and then your sump pump comes on and discharges. So one of the key things we want to talk about and show you in this illustration is that if you note that when it rains, your sump pump comes on almost immediately, this could be a problem that is at your home, something very simple to fix. I'm showing it in an illustration in the front of your house, could very well be around the rear, to the side, anywhere where downspouts, where water is conveyed through the downspouts. So a simple blockage could cause this situation to occur, and how you realize it, you hear your sump pump come on. Eventually your electricity bill becomes a little bit larger because you're now paying to pump storm water that used to gravity out to the street. Okay, let's move forward and talk a little bit about the ultimate disaster, if you will, which is basement flooding. And I'm sure there are some people that are out in the city and even in the township that have this type of problem. And some of those warning signs to look for is first when in the corners and along the edge of the walls, if you start seeing mold or mildew starting to accumulate. You notice that the basement is very mildew odor. The next thing you might watch on to the right is cracks in your walls. If you have no paneling, and you'll be able to see spots starting to appear and possibly bulges that are conveying water. And then as step 3 moves on, you start seeing a little bit of water after an intense rainfall event. You see seepage, and eventually it becomes flooding, water in your basement, and now the structural problems start to occur where you have cracks where this water is pressurizing behind the basement wall, trying to get through, and then you have a structural problem that becomes very expensive to fix. We'll talk about some of the reasons why stormwater gets into your house and how it can, in the hopes that you can check your own system, and hopefully this program will help you towards solving any of the problems you may have at your house. One of the things that occurs is poor grading around the edge of your house. In other words, if the land around your foundation of your house is very flat, or the grade actually slopes back to your house, that means when it rains, that water is constantly moving toward the foundation of your house. However, a better grading situation is that the land slopes away from your house. That gives that rain some place to move away, so it's controlled away from the house, keeping the foundation dry. The next thing that can occur is the piping can get blocked. Now, the below ground piping is your foundation drains, which we showed you at your sump pump. Those that have a sump pump can tell if there's water flowing through. Those that don't have a sump pump, it's a bigger problem because you have no access to the foundation drain. However, if there are signs of water coming up through the floor, it could very well be a problem in the foundation drain. One of the major problems that is experienced by homeowner piping, that is the stormwater piping, is clogged or broken downspouts and gutters. And just very simply, that means you get leaves, debris in your gutters, and all of a sudden it clogs up in either your gutter or down in your downspout and cannot let the water escape to the destination point, which is the storm sewer. So where does it have to go? Nowhere but back into your basement. So clogged or broken downspouts and gutters are a very important part of homeowner maintenance. And then finally, when downspouts get clogged or they discharge too close to the home, that water again cannot migrate fast enough away from the house and sometimes finds its way into the basement through the walls and cracks or underneath the basement floor slab. Now the final effect is what we're going to show you here is a homeowner basement that has any or all of these problems. Now let's watch near the floor here as water starts percolating in during a rainfall event. As you watch along the line here, you'll see water as well as air bubbles where water is straining to get into the basement. And very simply, this home had some blocked downspouts and places where water just could not escape, had nowhere else to go but into the homeowner's basement. So that's one of the things, the result, as well as some of the structural problems that you see along the wall where cracks and actually the concrete has peeled away. Now let's talk a little bit about the responsibilities and why you have flooding and what you can do about it. Let's look at the graphic, and the whole picture shows the overall drainage from the homeowner side on the right, which is the residents responsible for, as well as the left side of the photo or the illustration that shows the public responsibility. Depending on whether you live in the city or the township, there are some responsibilities that are either county or the township, or if you're in the city, may belong to the city. In future shows, we're going to ask representatives of both the county, the township, and the city to join us and talk about the individual responsibilities and how they maintain the public sewers, which are these large sewers in the street, the storm, and also the sanitary sewer. So in future shows, this is what we like to do for informational purposes for you, so you understand how they function and what the individual responsibilities are. And again, they differ whether you're in the township or if you're in the city. But let's get back over to the right side, and look at the resident's responsibility. So what are you really responsible for so that you don't have flooding or you don't have those symptoms that we showed you? We talked about your gutters up here at your roof. We talked about the downspouts as that water flows down underground. And those things, very simply, you need to keep clean. You need to have a place for water to go, because if it doesn't is transported over to the storm sewer, then it's going to back up and get into your basement through either the foundation drain or underneath the floor slab, as we showed in the video. So there are certain responsibilities. We'll continue in the next show to talk about that. But basically, at your house, on your property, you're responsible generally for the piping, both stormwater and sanitary or domestic flow from your home. Now let's look at these storm and sanitary sewers in the public side. These are generally in front of your house, below ground. They're generally a large diameter storm sewer. It could be 18, 24 inches in diameter or larger. And below that, or in the vicinity, is the sanitary sewer that intercepts all the domestic wastewater from your home. And it's generally sized anywhere between 8, 10, or 12 inches. So it's very small and has only been designed to convey household water. Let's turn the water on and simulate rainfall using this fire hydrant, and we'll let the water run down the street, and we'll actually add a little bit of dye so we can track the water in simulating this rainfall. So as you see the water trail down the street, flows into the catch basin, and eventually goes to the storm sewer and is conveyed away to the nearest stream or eventually Lake Erie. These are the public sewers. The sanitary sewer, again, shouldn't see any of that water. That's all storm water that we simulated. And again, in future shows, we will be discussing the public sewers, how they function, and the responsibilities for those. Let's go back to your house and look again at your piping. And this piping, it picks up or intercepts all the downspouts, flows around your house, and is connected to what we call a storm lateral. That storm pipe brings all the storm water from your roof area and yard out to the storm sewer, and again, conveys it away. Generally, this pipe wraps all around your house. Wherever there's a downspout, there is a underground piping. Again, this piping would be somewhere between 18 inches and 24 inches in the ground. So it's somewhat shallow, susceptible to roots where you're planting shrubs around your house, so it's the first place we look for problems. And then let's go back down to the bottom here, this green pipe that we colored green. That's the foundation drain that we showed you in earlier slides. And that pipe, again, is for only groundwater that is below your basement floor slab or on the outside of your wall. And in older homes, that foundation drain is connected to this sanitary lateral, shown in green, and again, conveys it out to the small diameter sanitary sewer. Let's go back and turn the water on your house and watch again how the water flows in a good system through these pipes, network, and again, out to the storm sewer. No leaks found. Everything is conveyed the way it should be. Storm water should go to storm sewer, and domestic or foundation drain should be dry at this time. But now let's put some age on some of the houses that are in the township or in the city, and redo this simulation, if you will. And the way we'll do that, we'll add water using garden hoses off that fire hydrant, so we have a source of water so we can actually see this occur during dry weather. So now we're going to add water, turn the water on, and watch it flow again. So you see water flowing from each one of these downspouts, and it's on its way out to the street. But let's stop it right there and go back and look very carefully, if you will, at this blue pipe. And as we go down the line, you're going to see places right on maybe on the side of your house where water is actually leaking. And where is it leaking to? Eventually to that perforated pipe, which is the foundation drain. There could be other places below this downspout. We see a place where water is starting to leak again. And let's go around, and any place there's a place here and also in the straight run. Let's turn the water back on again and let it flow. And as we see these leaks start to occur, look what happens in that foundation drain. It starts filling up, adding more water to the sanitary, and eventually we have a flooded condition, which you may experience as basement flooding. So what we showed here is this particular house, and there may be many houses like this, that contribute to the flooding of an area. Only because the piping is old, it begins to leak. The homeowner does not see this because all this piping is underground, but yet this has been found in testing houses like what is shown in this illustration. Okay, one of the things we did mention earlier was the poor grading, and we're going to run an illustration on the left-hand side of the screen, and we're showing a blow-up of the downspout in this little circle, but that came right back to the house over here if you follow the cursor. As it rains, that water is trying to get over this hump, and it certainly can't, so it has nowhere else to go but find its way down along your house, into your foundation drain, and again, back into the storm lateral, and now the sanitary sewer is shown flooded. So this house, because the piping doesn't allow that storm water to be controlled and directed over that hump, it finds a different way to leak and finds a pipe that now conveys it to the sanitary. Let's go over to the right-hand side, and we'll just zoom in a little bit on this house. And, okay, well, let's stop it right here. And this is just a downspout that are like many of your own downspouts, disconnected near the house. And we added some water and added some green dye to that so you could see exactly where that water ends up discharging to. So if you look around, this water is all contained by the timbers for landscaping, but the bad news is this water has no place to go but back to your foundation. So because of the situation, water could migrate down your basement wall, in through your wall, or into your sump pump. So at your home, when you have a condition like this, it's a good idea to examine anywhere you have a downspout disconnected like this and maybe move that away from the house. And it's always good to check your local ordinances from either the city or the township to know if there are any ordinances that direct you as to how far away you should or shouldn't discharge stormwater downspouts. All right, as we continue and talk about controlled and uncontrolled stormwater, a resident said to me, well, we don't have any gutters in our house, so why are we even worried about stormwater? Well, let's look on the right-hand side where we say there is defective, or in this case, missing gutters or downspouts. What happens to that water over on the right-hand side? So now we show the water hitting the roof and spills off. There's no gutter to capture that, to control it or direct it in the right place. It falls down onto the ground right near the foundation wall, eventually migrates and saturates the ground, causing that water to put pressure on the outside of the wall and possibly migrates into your basement. And again, on the side where you have, the left side where you have a downspout that's too close to the house, as we showed in the previous slide, that water never drains away from the house. It then finds its way, similar to the missing downspout side, right down alongside your house. So on the left graphic now, where we call inadequate grading, in both we're showing that the water falls even with downspouts or with no gutters and downspouts. There's nowhere for water to flow away once it hits the ground. The ground is very flat, and so again, it constantly stays near your home and can cause you a problem with your basement walls or possibly even inside your basement. Okay, this is a little bit of a blow-up of both of what we showed before, and we talked about grading. Why is it important to have good grading around your house? And most houses, especially probably back in the city, are a little bit closer than those in the township, and so you don't have much of a slope, a ground slope near your house. But this illustration shows that if you have some grade, good grade away from your house, when it rains, that water will flow away faster and less water will percolate through the ground, causing the basement wall, which would be over in this area, problems. However, on the right-hand side, where the ground is flat, the water has nowhere to go, it can go either way, back towards your house or possibly away. So more water percolates through the ground and stays near your house, penetrates the soil, and again, this is the reason for we talk about grading and why it's important to try and move stormwater away from your house whenever possible. All right, let's look at a house that has gutters and downspouts, and let's add some water. And this is a homeowner that didn't realize that they had a problem at their house. In other words, the problem had black downspouts as well as gutters that were full of leaves. So let's turn this on and watch very carefully as we add water. What happens? The water is spilling off the gutter. It's running onto the ground near the foundation. Very little water is coming out of the downspout. It's spilling all over onto the ground And where do you think this water is going? Yes, into the basement. This homeowner experienced basement flooding from their own home, just because a very simple problem like cleaning the gutters and downspouts of leaves and debris that had accumulated. And in the wintertime, this is experienced, if you have that same problem, you're going to see the photo on the lower right, ice accumulation. What has occurred is the downspouts are blocked, the gutters have filled up with leaves, and now when snow melt occurs, it tries to flow through the gutter and downspout, can't, has nowhere to go, but now it forms ice, and this ice can cause structural problems to your roof. So it's the really important thing to stress on the homeowner responsibility, and things that you can do are very simple. Get your gutters and your downspouts cleaned a couple times a year at the very least. And once again, we're just going to re-emphasize that. Clean the gutters in the fall and the spring. Make sure that you do get these things cleaned before winter, because you will have ice jam, and also you could have major damage as a result of the ice. And then the last thing is make sure your downspouts are disconnected and sufficiently away from the house if they are. One of the things that people experience that have a flat area near their home is to how do I get that water away from my house if it's flat and my downspout splashes onto the ground. There are devices in the system. We don't recommend devices of any certain kind, but we know that they're out there. And this particular one allows for a catch basin to catch the water from the downspout and actually conveys it in a pipe out to what's called a pop-up, which when it rains, the water flows through this pipe and actually rises up, and the rain spills out over top of the curb. Now let's look on the video as a close-up of this pop-up and watch it work as we lift it up. It's difficult maybe to see this water flowing, but now it's going over the curb and down the street. So now it's raining at this homeowner's home, but the water is conveyed away from the house, out near the street, and again is allowed to drain over the curb and down the street. Once again, you should always check with your local drainage ordinances from the city or the township to make sure that these devices are okay to be used, but it's just one of many things that are out there that will help homeowners with their drainage problems. And finally, we want to thank you for your interest in viewing this program. We hope that we have comments and questions that we can address in future shows. We will continue with this as a first in a series of public service, public education programs about stormwater.